you can click the drop down. If you're not getting alerts to my live on this video, you can click the drop down, and there should be a setting on there that says see every live or alert you whenever you go live. So yeah, tonight we're going to talk about the EV revolution, or is it? Appreciate that. Good to know that the sound is good. So I want to start this with, anybody else notice that Google didn't have anything on their page for Memorial Day weekend? You know, pretty big holiday. But they didn't have, nothing in the Google name. It was just the plain Jane, Google logo. And, on June 1st, they ran a Pride logo, pretty much ran a Pride logo until this weekend. Now they're running the Juneteenth logo, the little logo or whatever it is, the graphics that they do. They're running the Juneteenth one now, but they didn't do the Memorial Day weekend. So we can get out there with all this pride and everything else, and this new political holiday that is today that banks are closed on, And I mean, I kind of understand it, but then again, the way it came about, it solves nothing. But we can't, Google can't honor the fallen. A Memorial Day weekend that's mainly there to honor the fallen, fallen soldiers that died for the right to be this way, to the right for our politics. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I hate that Google as a company has a monopoly on all their products, on YouTube, on Gmail, and on their search algorithm. It's backdoored into pretty much all search algorithms that don't use Bing. And every time an interesting, good search algorithm comes up that's not Google, it gets bought out. And so this does go along into what I'm talking about. Like, this is not capitalism anymore. It's a monopoly. All these top corporate companies are a monopoly, and that's what we're going to be talking about here shortly with electric vehicles, is that they're controlling everything because they buy up anybody that opposes them, that gives them a run for their money. They just buy them up to keep control. So here it is. We'll get into tonight's topic. What's up with EVs? What's going on with them? Why are they, the past 2, 3, 4 years, why are they all of a sudden becoming the rage? Why are they what is in vogue now and what the world is going to in the future, but yet you don't see many of them? I almost see more Corvettes than I do EVs. And yeah, I get it that there's probably statistically more Corvettes out there, but that Corvettes are typically not a vehicle, driven daily. The newer ones, yeah, but most of the time they are a secondary vehicle. And I mean, it's crazy that we're to this point now. That we're to this point of a forced change on us to do away with something that works. And it goes right along with the whole climate change thing, where I was talking about climate change, your family's going to starve, where they were wanting to do away with our methods of eating, our food, livestock. They want to end livestock now. It's not enough. It's not enough that you're giving away your gasoline vehicle. It's not enough that you're, going to do a little better and not jet set everywhere. It's not enough. They need your vehicles now. They need your livestock. It's never going to be enough. Don't you get it? You can't own a home. You're not going to be able to own a home. Sorry. You're not going to be able to own a home because it won't be green enough for them. It won't be sustainable enough for them. Remember, we talked about that. That's the new word, sustainable. It's no longer climate change or global warming or the ozone layers depleting. It's sustainable. Everything has to be sustainable. I mean, it is crazy town that we live in. You know, there like NURC, my page here, somebody on here is commenting appliances. You know that New York State has banned gas stoves. California banned, what was it? Was it 2036? They banned gasoline engines from being there. That they're not even going to allow new gas stations to be built there. That place is going to crumble. They don't have enough power. They don't have enough electricity infrastructure to begin with for the amount of people that are there. But that's what they want, though, right? They want to drive these people out. They don't want them to be in the state anymore. They need to drive them out. They need to drive them away so they can start building these new smart cities, these 15-minute cities. I don't really see many consumers saying they must have an electric vehicle. I don't. I typically dive into a lot of automobile related aspects because I'm a gearhead, a car guy. It's one of my major hobbies, along with firearms. And it's just, I'm sorry, but everything that I get into, that it's a very small percentage of car people that are pro electric vehicle. A very small. And the demand's there for the newer vehicles. I mean, affording it may be one thing. It might be a little tougher to get in there and afford these vehicles these days because they've almost tripled in price, which is insane. I mean, it really is. But yeah, I'm not seeing a demand for these electric vehicles. I'm not seeing a lot of people come out and say, oh, I've got to have one. And it's not, I mean, it's most certainly not the way that the media is portraying it. Not at all. For 2, maybe 3 years now in a row, the Dodge Challenger and the Dodge Charger have been some of the top selling cars in the United States. Everybody knows, every American knows what a Challenger is. Every American knows what a Charger is by Dodge. Some of the top selling cars in the United States. They're right now some of the longer running modern cars. Like, when I say longer running, like the chassis has not been changed much since it debuted in 2009. There's just been updates here and there. And that's a successful platform. But despite this, Stellantis, the new parent company of Fiat Chrysler, they're now called Stellantis. They combine with Peugeot. And so under the Stellantis umbrella, they are canceling the Charger and Challenger next year. You're not going to get a new model. You're not going to get the new iteration of it. They're going away. The 5.7 Hemi, the 6.4 Hemi, the Hellcat engine, all of that is going away, despite it being wildly popular. 2023 is going to be the last year you can buy the new iterations of the current gasoline production model. And the Charger has been the sole go-to police car for around 4 years now, since Ford canceled all cars but the Mustang in 2020. And we'll talk about the possible lines of that here shortly. And just to go right along with it, while the Mustang lives on and Ford is claiming that it will be gasoline powered from now until the foreseeable future, GM is ending the Camaro again. You know, they ended it after 2002 for the 2024 model year. While the sales have been soft for the Camaro, it had been outselling until this past year, GM's electric vehicle. But the GM's electric vehicle comes in at a lower price point than the Camaro. So if you haven't noticed, they've been driving the price of these pony performance cars, and I talk about those because those, aside from 4x4s, the pony cars are some of my passion vehicles. The muscle cars and things like that, like that's one of my number one passion in vehicles. And they're driving the prices up because people will just take those over an electric vehicle all day long. So they're just going to drive them up to where they're not attainable for the average American. But not only that, for electric vehicles will be that way. And despite some of these vehicles being some of their best selling, you know, cars, most of them selling more than the manufacturer's EVs, they're all going away, except for the Mustang. And who knows? The Mustang will probably end up being electric before it's all over with. Yes, there is the Mach E that they had to slap a Mustang badge on. You know, they had to slap a Mustang badge on it to get people to buy it, to be a performance oriented EV. Yet, despite all this, they still persist to corral consumers into EVs, even though they're not wanted. Like I said, a very small percentage of the population wants them, and a lot of that percentage is just the people that are trying to outdo their neighbor. They're trying to outdo the Joneses, and the media is telling them this is the new hotness. This is the new, peak consumerism, materialistic thing. So they feel like they need them. Not many people, aside from hippies who can't afford them, want them. And then the manufacturers lie about the range. Like Ford, they build an EV pickup truck and it can't even do half the range of a normal base 6-cylinder pickup truck. That if you hook a trailer to both of them, the 6-cylinder is going to go 100, 150 to 200 more miles towing a trailer than the Lightning pickup that's electric. And especially that range diminishes on a hot or cold day where you're having to use the heater or the air conditioner. Like Ford released a bulletin to tell consumers of the Lightning electric vehicle back, when we were having these bad winter temperatures at the end of last year. They were telling people not to use their heater, and that will help with their range. An electric vehicle. You'll do good to get 100 miles on flat land towing a trailer on a full charge in a Lightning SUV. Mind you that most chargers, it's going to take you 6 to 8 hours to get a full charge. It's not a 20-minute tops pump, pay for your gas and pump it deal. And when I say 20 minutes, that's, you doing everything else, maybe running in and grabbing a treat, whatever. No, like even on the superchargers, and I think Tesla's now opening up the technology to go to work on other electric vehicles. I still think it's 45 minutes at the fastest, but it's never, from people I've talked to, it's never 45 minutes. And I want to say a lot of people pay $80 to $100 per charge. So you tell me where you're winning with this, EV owners. Like, yeah, I don't have one. I've looked into a lot of it, but you tell me where exactly you are winning. Because you're limited in range. You don't have places here, there, and everywhere to stop and refuel, recharge your vehicle. Don't give me that, 100 years ago, everybody rode a horse. Sure. I would rather ride a horse than an EV if I was going across country. At least I know the horse isn't going to run out of freaking charge, 100 miles in. And so you pay nearly $80,000 on average, and this is for used ones right now. I pulled it up earlier today and looked. A used Lightning averages about $80,000, and if you hook your boat to it to tow it to a lake, which I would be terrified to launch this thing in a body of water. I don't care how safe it is. But if you're going to pull your boat to the lake, you're limited by 100 miles, and that's 100 miles to and from. So 50 miles there, 50 miles back, if you're not going uphill and not running your air conditioner. You can look it up. A lot of people doing the towing things. I think the most I ever seen out of one was on a day that they were doing everything they could to maximize the range, was like maybe 150 miles. Maybe. So let's talk about Ford for a minute. Ford's only profits are in what they are calling their legacy units and fleet vehicle sales right now. What does that mean? Do you feel there's a demand for EVs? Do you feel that? Why is it that EVs started becoming mandatory for manufacturers, it seems like, Everybody's rolling one out. It's really weird. Ford is losing billions of dollars on its EV division. They are up to $3 billion in losses so far. Yet, these manufacturers still persist to corral consumers into EVs. $3 billion. And like I said before, their only profits are in their legacy units and fleet vehicles. That means the conventional gasoline units are only the ones that are profitable for them. Now you have GM brands like, oh yeah, there's enough to go around here. You can't be just hate on Ford or hate on GM or hate on Mopar. There's enough to go around. GM is thinking EVs are so much so mandatory that the Cadillac and Buick brands will be EV electric vehicle exclusive by 2030. Despite these companies losing so much money in doing so, they are literally turning a loss for every electric vehicle they sell. Mind you that these electric vehicles cost way more than a standard economy car. Like we're in a date range. I mean, in a price range of you could have a nice like mid-class Mercedes or an electric vehicle, a mid-class BMW or an electric vehicle. And then we have the brand new, just released last year, Cadillac EV, the Lyriq. The first quarter of 2023, it only sold 968 units. Cadillac as a brand in quarter one of 2023 sold 36,321 vehicles. But the Lyriq, their first EV, mainstream EV, only sold 968 units. Where's the demand? On a brand new launch that had so much hype, and I remember there was so many pre-orders for this. They're not even moving them. Why would they make a move like this when the demand is down? Especially committing corporate suicide. Essentially, I mean, what kind of company says, oh, we're just going to take a loss on all our product? What happens then? Make sure I'm not losing any of the comments. We'll touch on them here in just a second. AOC's Green New Deal was never passed, but lo and behold, it seems to be chugging along with the wild. What's behind this? Why is this happening? Even though we're not reading about any government mandates or anything along those lines, but they're slowly trickling down to that point. Like a lot of the Green New Deal stuff is getting pushed slowly through. We got the stop-start technology. There's a lot of technology that they're forcing manufacturers to put in their cars that are expensive. Just like, 10 years ago with the DEF system and the diesels. And everything diesel now has to have a DEF system to help with pollution. Yet I see cardboard DEF, boxes everywhere. Literally driving down the middle of the road of Dalton 2 weeks ago. And there was literally a peak DEF box sitting in the middle of the road. In the middle of the road. Wonder how long it takes that plastic and that cardboard to break down over time. I wonder. So what's behind this? And if you followed along with the past two episodes, I'm probably going to sound like a broken record here. It's ESG, Economic Social Governance. Yet again, we are at another crossroad or turning point in consumerism where it's affecting our life. With government automobile restrictions tightening and companies like BlackRock and Vanguard doing the hard left's bidding and controlling stakes of these publicly traded companies, they're getting away with it. And once again, we're talking about how a virtually business oriented social credit system is forcing behavior. Larry Fink's words, not mine. He said that. He said, you have to force the behavior, you have to force the change. He said that in 2017. You know, a lot of this wokeism and electric vehicle push came about not long after 2017 when he was talking about ESG scores and pushing them out. And just like I said before, you have to think about it. BlackRock and Vanguard, just these two companies that are asset management companies, they take your 401k and invest it into all these corporate companies. They buy in and sit on the board of these places. So they get to pull the strings and have control over the direction of these companies via your money. Larry Fink is known as the $10 trillion man because his company oversees more than $10 trillion a year. That's a little over a third of the U.S. debt right now that he oversees, more than the United States GDP per year. You think this guy knows what's going on? You think he knows what he's doing? I mean, what he's doing is working. That's why we see wokeness. That's why we see that. That's why we see climate change initiative. That's why we're seeing electric vehicles coming when there's no infrastructure to support it. And we're going to talk more about infrastructure here at the end. So let me read you an excerpt from, it's a December 1st, 2021 article from Stellantis CEO. This was not long after Stellantis, which is Mopar, Fiat Chrysler, was formed after they were bought out or merged with Peugeot. EV cost burden is beyond the limits for automakers. That's the title of the article. This was in Detroit. Chief Executive Carlos Tavares said, external pressures on automakers to accelerate the shift to electric vehicles potentially threatens jobs and vehicle quality as producers struggle to manage the higher cost of building EVs. There we are talking about the cost. Governments and investors want car manufacturers to speed up the transition to electric vehicles, but the costs are beyond the limits of what the auto industry can sustain, Tavares said in an interview with Reuters. What has been decided, key thing here, what has been decided is to impose on the automotive industry electrification that brings 50% additional costs against a conventional vehicle. He's saying that an electric vehicle costs 50% more than a conventional gasoline petrol vehicle. He said there is no way we can transfer 50% of additional cost to the final consumer because most parts of the middle class will not be able to pay because these car manufacturers depend on the middle class to buy their vehicles. Automakers could charge higher prices and sell fewer cars or accept lower profit margins, Tavares said. Those paths both lead to cutbacks. Union leaders in Europe and North America have warned tens of thousands of jobs could be lost. So what I take from this article, and you can go back and read more, and I read more about it back in early 2022, he's pretty much saying, like, you guys are forcing us to do this. Like, we just want to build what works and what the people like, but y'all are forcing us into this EV thing. They're forcing them to do it. So, with speaking about EVs, I wonder where the electric vehicle batteries come from. China dominates the market. It's no secret that China moved into Afghanistan right after we left to mine the lithium that is used to manufacture the electric vehicle batteries. Another thing is China's been moving into small cities in the African continent and also South America, building them up. So they're building up their cities, investing in their cities, investing in their livelihoods there because these are third world countries while they're mining their resources. Just between 2018 and 2020, China invested $16 billion in South America. Now we are in Cold War 2.0, and China is becoming our adversary, and they're trying to claim a world superpower status. Some could argue they already have it. And they hold the literal key to our next generation of vehicle fuel source or fuel containment. What happens when we go to war? What happens to all these EVs that the batteries have an expiration date on? We didn't even touch on that. Your batteries can only be charged and recharged so long. I work in the manufacturing industry, and there's a lot of electric manufacturing handling equipment, material handling. There's a lot of it, and the batteries do go bad. They don't last that long. What happens is the charge gets less and less and less and less, just like your iPhone, just like your Samsung Galaxy. After so long you use it, the battery doesn't hold a charge as long and it dies faster. So, what's going to happen to your electric vehicles? So, if we go into a brutal war, or much worse, a Cold War with China, and it's going to be a war of resources, what happens when the battery supply dries up? The last I checked, the U.S. doesn't have that much lithium to mine. It probably doesn't some areas, but we can't even drill our own oil. Are we going to go and mine lithium for green energy when it's twice, probably 10 times as pollutant as mining for petroleum? So before I get into this next segment, I'm going to touch on some of the comments. Lisa says, unreal. Nurak, so July we are celebrating the old white men who signed the Declaration of Independence. Haha. No, we are celebrating our freedom. No, I'm almost willing to bet that the way Google's rolling now, and if for those of you just joining, Google didn't put anything up, no graphic or any kind of thing up for Memorial Day, but as soon as it turned June 1st, they had pride, 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 pride. And then, this weekend, I want to say it started Friday or Saturday, they had a thing up for Juneteenth, but nothing for Memorial Day weekend. And I'm willing to bet that they may not even do anything at all for 4th of July. You got to remember, these hard leftists hate everything. They hate everything that is American. They hate America. If they could change the name of America, they would change it. Nurex says appliances. Yep, we talked about that. Trying to ban gas stoves. Then it's going to be your air conditioner. What else? The livestock. You're going to eat the bugs. You're going to eat crickets. Lisa says, check out the new limitations on just chickens in Catoosa. This isn't just big cities anymore. No. They don't want anybody being self-sufficient. They need you on the grid. They need you to depend on government on all aspects. Local, state, your county, your city, and the federal government. They need Uncle Sam to be your sugar daddy. That's what they need. Annette, I don't want one. She's talking about an EV. I have no desire for one. I can see where certain items, like maybe a bicycle and different things of that nature, might be useful. But there is no infrastructure there to support electric cars right now. There's just not. I'm hoping, by the way this is turning out with Ford, that it's a sign that the people are rejecting it, just like they're rejecting this, just like they're rejecting Bud Light and Target. I'm hoping that this is a sign that they are going to reject the electric vehicles. If they want to build some for those few that want to feel like they're helping the government, fine. The Prius did good in its niche. It had a niche market, and it did good in it. But that's all I heard was hybrids are the future, and E85 was the future. And it all fell flat on its face because we had turns out of Congress and the people that were lobbying for it kind of left, and then it just died because those people made their money, their quick money, and got away. But the way this is coming on with EVs, it really does scare me. Nurek, John Kerry buying up farmland to stop growing food. Yeah, Bill Gates too. Just what they want you to eat. Yeah, bugs. Nurek, plus the weight of EVs is 1,000 pounds more, which will tear the roads up. Yeah, I mean, you got to think about it now. The average car and crossover SUV is probably right around 3 to 3,500 pounds, and the average EV, I think the lightest EV there is out there is about 4,900 pounds. I mean that weighs almost as much as my pickup truck, which is insane. Nurek, the world government wealth distribution. If any wealth left, right? No, all the wealth is going to go to the top. That's what happens. That's what happens on these resets. Looking to do a big 2.0, my first ever podcast. You can go to nurac.org and listen to it. It was talking about the Great Reset, but I think it's time for an update because I recorded that almost. Well, no, we're coming up on 2 years ago. Nurek, Deep State, Sharon, watching, Tim, yeah. Tim, I'm pretty sure the Rothschilds own it all. Yeah, it's a lot of these families that own it all and that are influencing it. But people like the CEO of BlackRock and Vanguard as a whole, you really need to look into them and understand that's why we're getting all this wokeness and why we're getting all these things. It's a multifaceted attack on the consumer. And it's just what Nurak's saying here. It's all about control. And Tim, you're right on it with the 15-minute cities. You're right on it. That's what it boils down to. The control in the 15-minute cities. So what does the future hold for EVs? I mean, if you haven't noticed, things keep getting more and more expensive. Do you think cars and EVs will get cheaper? I can't think of a time in history where they did. I can't think of a time in history where the prices of these things ever went down as far as their MSRP. Not significantly. And right now, there's such a disconnect between the middle class and purchasing of a car. Like, most of the middle class can't truly afford these vehicles they're buying. 60, 70, $80,000 pickups that they're financing for 10, 12 years now. Like, I seen some terms the other day on a new car that was 12 years. That vehicle that you're buying, that 2023 model, that 2024 model, I promise you, it is not going to last 10 to 12 years. It's not. Go and talk to any mechanic, look up any mechanic that's a legit mechanic on YouTube. Why do you think used car prices are so high right now? Why do you think that? It's not because there's a new car shortage anymore. They've caught up. Drive around and look at your dealerships. Yeah, Toyota's not there yet, but all your other dealerships have new vehicles in stock. They're starting to fill back up. But yet, people are still buying the crap out of used cars. It's the craziest thing. The repo rate on used cars is at an all-time high. It's crazy insane, and the banks won't let go of them. So the floodgates haven't opened on that yet. But yet, the used car prices stay high, even though new cars are more accessible. There's more of a demand for used cars because they know these brand new cars are not going to last. They know. I feel bad for anybody that has something that was built after 2020 and you're making payments on it and you got, a 7, 8, 9 year loan term. I feel bad because that vehicle is going to give you crap. It is. It's not going to last. I'm not seeing many of these vehicles that are built after 2016, 2017 last. I come from the automotive market and I was astounded by how vehicles 2 and 3 year olds that the water pumps, the starters, valve cover gaskets, namely on the Cummins Nissan Titan, that they dropped the Cummins engine in because that was such a failure. The starter would go out on those. And I'm talking trucks with 30, 40,000 miles. The starter would go out and they would get massive oil leaks because it's a high pressure oil system, massive oil leaks from the valve cover gaskets. And they weren't cheap. New vehicles, the parts are not cheap for them unless they're carrying over an old engine. And that Cummins 5.0 liter was a brand new deal. There's a lot of newer vehicles like this, like the 2016 to 2020 GMC and Chevrolet Silverado 1500, pickup trucks. They're not lasting. The transmissions are going out. Some cases, the transmissions are going out before they even get 100,000 miles. And most people drive their pickup trucks like crazy. And the same could be said on and on. A lot of the Ford pickup trucks have issues with the transmission. Not where it goes right out, but the cost to fix it almost costs as much as a rebuild on a transmission would be if it's not covered under warranty. So if you're diehard and you got to buy something new, get that extended warranty, and you need to ask the hard questions. Is it going to cover? Is it going to cover this that fails, or is it going to cover that? Anytime buying a new vehicle is not a wise investment unless it's something exotic that will appreciate in value. And even exotics depreciate, then appreciate. Unless it's, a shortage built car, which eventually the market will catch up. It always does. But if you're middle class and buying a newer $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 vehicle right now, it's not going to last. It's going to be a bad investment, and you're going to hate your life in a few years. And I hate to say that, but that's the truth. That's why I have multiple older vehicles that are anywhere from around 10 years old to 30 years old. I got one of them that's over 30 years old now. You know what? Every time I put that key in and turn the switch, it fires right up. And you know what else? Parts are cheap for them. Parts are cheap. I can get an engine for one for what some of you people are paying a month. I can get a transmission for one for half of what some of you are paying for one of these $80,000 vehicles a month. I'll gladly take that all day long. EVs afford the government or powers that be a mode of control. With gasoline and petrol fuels, it's more of an unregulated market. They can't control how much you buy or store or stockpile, even though they tried in the late 2000s with Obama gas, to control it. It cuts most of the gas shelf life to 6 months, sometimes even worse, because they added ethanol to it, and it destroys older fuel systems if you don't pay attention or watch it, or just use it and not let it sit. But now, with the introduction of 15-minute smart cities, like I said, we'll go more in depth on the smart cities in a future episode coming up, because that is a whole topic in and of itself. Maybe next Monday. There's about 3 topics I'm wanting to really touch on, and I think I'm just gonna have to flip a coin each Monday. But they don't want normal people to have cars. The World Economic Forum wants to outright ban nasty, dirty automobiles. That's one thing they talked about with the 15-minute cities. They don't want, there's so many, they're talking about by this period, there's going to be so many pollutant vehicles on the road because of the amount of people and yada, 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 that it's going to be so bad for the climate. It's going to be so horrible and everything else. Yet I don't see clouds, in these cities like there are in Mexico City. I don't see them doing much about Mexico City. There's times where the smog's so bad there that people had to wear masks, like legitimately wear masks to breathe and whatnot, or not even go outside. But the World Economic Forum wants to ban your personal mode of transportation. And I was talking about this several years ago, 2-3 years ago to be exact, to several people that had come in that we were talking about electric vehicles because it was relevant to the job I was doing. Then they're like, what are you guys going to do if they go EV? And I said, well, until they ban gasoline cars, we'll still be here because people will be trying to fix that because they won't want to pay for electric vehicles. But you watch, we're going to start when a lot of this starts fleshing out. We're going to start seeing infrastructure moves. We're going to be seeing them. And with those infrastructure moves, I think they're going to ban gasoline, petrol vehicles, the non-commercial ones. They're going to ban those from the highway. That's the way I think it'll start. I think we'll probably see war first, something like that. I don't want to. I hope something changes, but we're gonna war game it here. Worst case scenario, war game. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is something that I sat back and I thought, if I was on this team and I wanted X to happen, here's Y and Z. I would ban normal vehicles from the interstates. We would redo the interstates, revamp them, and have electric travel on there, driverless vehicles to cut down on accidents. So you'd have maybe tram systems or buses, self-operating vehicles. A lot of your electric vehicles now are getting to the point of autopilot, the Tesla autopilot and just self-operating vehicles. I think we're probably a solid 3 to 5 years out on a fully self-driving vehicle, like fully, updates here and there. But the only way it works is you have to eliminate the human element of driving. So interstate highways will become driverless only. Well, these vehicles are going to be reserved for the elite. The average middle class will go broke paying for one, so most of them will not get them. That's what I foresee happening. So we'll go into that, and then for interstate travel, we'll go into interstate travel, and it'll be, self-driving buses, trams, whatnot like that. So that'll be probably like a phase one mega infrastructure build that they'll do. That will probably see, the provisions for. They'll probably. I almost think it'll be a topic of the 2024 election. I think infrastructure issues will probably start coming up mid 2024. It'll become an issue along with the economy because what generally happens, we're going to be in such economic downturn by that point. It'll be kind of like what Roosevelt did during the Great Depression and just revamping things and creating more government jobs, and then we're going to roll out this new infrastructure thing. Whoever the president is then. That's something that I could war game and foresee coming. And so, your regular petrol vehicles will be banned to just side roads and back roads. You're not going to be able to travel on major highways. You're not going to be able to travel on major roads. So they're not going to come and take your vehicles from you. No. Because that's difficult. That takes manpower. To do that, it's almost the gun thing. Like, you would literally need a small army. It could be IRS agents. That's another thing. You definitely want to check out today's intel drop. I'll start posting them to the groups here shortly. But yeah, the IRS agents are coming after gun owners right now. It's the craziest thing because they have access and know when you're buying guns. I digress. So it would take a small army to come and take your vehicles from you like it would your guns, So the easier way is like the thing with guns. It's like they ban bullets. What are you going to do? What are you going to use to shoot? You can only reload so many times. Where are you going to get the brass? Where are you going to get the lead? Same thing. They do away with fuel. They do away with you being allowed to drive them. Your petrol vehicle becomes yard art. Or you'll have to pay a special tax and registration to be able to drive on these back roads where there's not automated vehicles. But that's what we're going to see because the World Economic Forum was talking about automated vehicles and how they want to get there to provide public transportation to revamp this. So a lot of what they're talking about, you have to look at it here and there and realize where we are on the technology, that we're not quite there yet, but they're looking ahead because that's the plan that they're making now to get there. And that's why they're jump starting and forcing this EV revolution, because it needs to work with the EV. They've got to corral you in and they've got to control you. But forcing this forces the corporations that are building electric vehicles to figure out ways. They don't have to divert their resources. They can pull the strings on their puppets and force them to figure out the way. And so that's where we're going to be. So you watch it. You watch and see. The next infrastructure bills coming out that are talking about roadways and things like that, there'll be plans for fast public transportation in there. You guarantee it. And it'll be automated, self-piloting, because it'll be safer that way. You'll have your self-driving tractor trailers. And just like Nurak's saying here, later it'll be the rich and the poor, no middle class. Yeah, they want to eliminate the middle class because the middle class are the conservatives. Majority of middle class tends to lean conservative. They hate us. They hate us. I don't know why we tolerate them, because they hate us. You don't think that if they had a chance to kill us, to cut off our heads, they would take it as quick as they could? Tim says middle class will become the poor class. Grace says watching again late. Hey, it'll be up on here, and then within about 2 days, I'll have it out on Nurak.org and Spotify and all the major podcast things. So this episode, if you're just tuning in late, or you can't listen to it all, can't listen to me yarb for about an hour, I get it. If you want to go back and hear it, like I said, it's easier to listen through podcast outlets. So usually within 48 hours, it's up. Tim says, can SEAL Team 6 pay a visit to the World Economic Forum? Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice. In the way I see stopping it is this thing going on with Ford. And I'm a Ford guy, but like these past few years, like I can't anymore. I'm a diehard Mustang guy. I have been since I was like a small child. I've loved Mustangs. And I can't do it with Ford the way they're doing, the way they were doing people on the Lightning. People, before Elon Musk bought out Twitter, people were tweeting how Ford duped them with the Lightning and talked about this, and Ford was paying them to take down their bad press about the Lightning. They were paying people off and asking them not to talk about it. I mean, it is insane. But that's Ford. I'm not saying GM's probably doing the same thing, and Stellantis will probably do the same thing whenever they roll out their EV, because people are going to hear that the range sucks, that they're only getting 150 miles, and you got to wait 8 to 12 hours to get a full charge. People are like, this is a joke. It's a gimmick. That's what it's going to become. That's what they want. But what I hope for is Ford taking this huge loss means people are not buying them. They're not buying enough of them. They're not turning a profit. $3 billion is nothing to scoff at. They are taking heavy losses. And that means GM is, that means all of the other ones. Like, you got to realize Tesla, Lucid, Rivian, they're small. They are small pieces. They're just filling their niche market. And the thing is, they've been doing this for years and they figured out what their market likes. Ford does not know the market. GM does not know the market. Stellantis does not know the market. And it makes me sick that publications like Motor Trend and Car and Driver are pushing this EV agenda, and it's obvious. Like, go on there and read the comments. Like, there's a few trolls because like I said, there are these keeping up with the Joneses, gotta outdo my best friend types. Gotta have the latest and greatest. I don't care if I go into a mountain of debt doing so. But they do that and they're like, no, no, no. Such and such editor tells me that this is the car to have, so now I have it. And they have to be spiteful and troll ish about it because they got sold a bad deal. And so they got a lot of themselves. And they got a lot of everybody else about how their EV's great and it'll smoke a Corvette, up until an eighth or quarter mile. But after that, the electric motor levels out. It doesn't pull as hard. Sure, I'm not saying they're not fast. They have a great launch, but launching's only part of it. The brand new Corvette, it outhandles. It'll outhandle a Tesla all day long. It may not beat the Plaid, the Tesla Model S Plaid in straight line performance. May have a hard time doing that, but you get them on the Nürburgring, I don't know that the Tesla would make it the whole way without running out. I'd like to research that. That's a pretty grueling track. I think it's like the benchmark used to be somewhere in the 7-minute mark getting around the track. And that's pretty fearsome track in Germany. But people, this is part of a series, especially telling you why there's wokeness, why there's climate change, why it's so prevalent in our life, why there's going to be digital currency, how they're pushing it. You need to really pay attention to ESG scores because it's coming for us. The ESG scores will be coming for us. When they roll out the digital currency, you can forget about the credit score and all that you have now. It'll be a reset, almost like a great reset they've been talking about. They'll slowly roll in a new credit system. And there are ways to fight it. We need people to reject this. We need people to hear things like that I am saying, and I need you to go and do your own research. I need you to do your own research and educate other people and make videos like this. If more of us do this and get out, and I know Facebook, it hinders my reach. I used to get close to 5 to 6 and on good nights 10,000 views. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. And I do good to break 1,000 nowadays because it hinders the reach. And that's fine. Because if I'm reaching 4 or 5, 6, maybe 10 of you with this video and you're talking about it with people and you're like, man, I heard this guy on Facebook the other night and he was talking about this and it makes sense. And you know what? I went and Googled some of what he said and it is the truth. Now, you may have to dig. You may get some leftist articles that are going to try to, you notice they kind of just downplay and say, yeah, they're talking about this and it seems like this, but it's really this. That's how you know you're being lied to if they have to talk to you that way, if they have to be condescending in the way that they write their articles, you know they're lying to you. But please look into this. And things that are ticking you off, you need to get on here and do a live or jump on YouTube or Rumble or wherever that you do your videos. And you don't even have to do it live. Make a video talking about how pissed off you are that, they're dropping the Hellcat, one of the greatest muscle cars ever built. Doesn't matter if you're a Chevrolet guy or a Ford guy. I'm a Ford guy, but I appreciate them all. The Hellcat is one of the greatest muscle cars ever built. And they're ending that because of ESG scores. Because the government wants you in an electric vehicle to control you. And so this is affecting a lot of people that are normally not political. And when you're at car meets, you need to have these discussions with people. Because somebody may be making the decision to buy one of these vehicles, and you talk to them about this and why it's going on, they may turn around and buy a gasoline vehicle out of spite. And that hurts them. And that's what we need. That's what we need. We need people educated. I'm not saying give them a full-on lecture, but just say, hey, man, look up electric vehicles and ESG scores. And why all of a sudden, not this slow growth, Why all of a sudden is it mandated? Why is the left going out of the dude that pioneered the electric vehicles? Why is he at a freaking war with them right now online? When he's literally building the thing that they want, and he's telling you that they are not the future right now because there is no infrastructure for it. You know, something is not jiving here and there. Last comment, Tim Welch says, can you imagine EVs trying to run the Daytona 500? Yeah, it wouldn't be the Daytona 500 anymore. It'd be the Daytona 5 or maybe the Daytona 50, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I would love to see the range that, like, you know, because they hop up the new Lightning and it is fast. It's like 580 horsepower equivalent and 700 foot-pounds of torque. I would like to see somebody get it on an oval track, a 1 mile oval like Daytona, and see how many laps it'll do before it's plumb just in safe mode, not even able to go anymore. I want to see that. You know, somebody somewhere has to have one and a camera to put it up on YouTube and just to see how many laps it could get. But you better believe it, like it's coming. NASCAR will be that way. I mean, heck, aren't they putting Cadillac converters on their junk now? Like, you know, as woke as they are, and it's the same thing. It's ESG scores that are controlling all your sports networks too. You got to think about it. These sports networks, a lot of them are publicly traded, and places like BlackRock and Vanguard invest your 401k into these. They get people on the boards and they force this ESG wokeness bullshit down their throat. That's what they do. They force this ESG, economic social governance. Look it up. Larry Fink said, you have to force behavior. You have to force it. He's forcing it. He's making these companies go against consumers. It's not what the consumers want. He's forcing products on us. Used to, in capitalism, the consumer dictated the market. That's the way it's supposed to be. Supply and demand. But they're creating artificial demand with propaganda now. That's the point we're at. And we just have to keep rejecting it. No matter how great our life will be if we buy that new Cadillac Lyriq and we're griping and bitching because, you know, we can barely get to work and back on a full charge. For those of you that had to commute, you know, 30 to 40 miles to work and back. Tim said that would be hilarious to watch, talking about the Lightning going around the Daytona lap. That's what we need. But yeah, I can imagine, you know, NASCAR whenever they go electric, and it's coming. The pit crews, like, you know, Shaw and Mohawk and all them, they run electric forklifts. And so they have a crew there. I've been in these places and seen it. They have big racks with battery chargers in these batteries. And mind you, these batteries weigh, you know, a ton or more, like a literal ton, some of them even more. You know, so that's 2,000-pound batteries sitting on these racks charging. And so when a battery is low on one of them, they pull up and pull that battery out and put a new battery in and go on about their business. I forget what one of the guys said, that they have to do it so many times per shift whenever they're running through. Somebody on here could probably chime in, but I'd be willing to bet it's probably twice a shift. You know, I don't know that in material handling batteries have been around probably a little longer than EVs, maybe. But yeah, that's what we're going to see in NASCAR is the pit crew is going to have a forklift or something out there to drop in their new battery because they're not going to be able to refuel and all that. And then you're going to have these freaking land yacht boats because they're riding around with a freaking 2,000-pound battery inside of them. So I guess what are we going to have, like a freaking magnesium, or that's a bad idea. You have a combustible metal that's lightweight with electricity all around there, and you know, one bad wreck, here it is, it's going to burn up. But you'd have to have like a carbon fiber body and a magnesium frame just to even counterweight everything, and you're still going to weigh more than a traditional, NASCAR, and where's the weight going to be located? The driver's going to have to sit on the battery that is loaded with battery acid, hydrofluoric, or I forget the terminology. They're going to be sitting on battery acid. So if there's a wreck, coated in battery acid. Pretty sure that's where you're sitting at on the F-150. It's below the cab, if I remember correctly. It's a crazy one, folks. That's all I got on this Monday night. We are just over an hour. I hope you enjoyed this one. This is one I've been waiting to talk about for a while. If you're just now tuning in, please go back and watch it from the beginning. It's a good one. Check out nurac.org, nurac.org. I do daily intel updates on there, Monday through Friday. All the links are clickable, so if you're interested in an article on there, you can click on it. I've posted the day after Tucker releases his episodes and whatnot. I post them in there, and you can literally watch them inside the link. It's like just a big scroll thing of all current news going on, and a lot of this is coming out and breaking before it even hits mainstream. So you can take that information and do some things with it, especially if it's pertinent, like shortages or potential war. It's a way you can kind of be in the know early and kind of prepare yourself for something going on. So definitely please check out nurac.org. It's been a passion project for me, and I'm glad to have it out in the wild now. I've worked on it for a while, over a year, putting that thing together, but now it's kind of going smooth as silk. And if anything ever happens to me on here, if my Facebook ceases to be, you will be able to find me there, because I'll be able to do posts just like on Facebook on there. And so I'll link it on there, and I forget to mention that a lot of times. So you definitely want to bookmark that page, and I'm always putting different kind of nuggets and things like that on there and Easter eggs inside of it, for you to go hunt for. And I'm hoping. I'm working this like a 5th or a 6th job right now, and I've sunk so much money into this, into the setup that you're viewing me on, into the microphone I have here, into the website, different things. So I have to be careful, because this is turning away from a hobby, and I'm looking at doing t-shirts. I'm trying to get the store worked out and whatnot. I've got a few designs for t-shirts and everything, and I'll have a whole company handle that I can just throw them to the design, and they put it on there. But rolling out some t-shirts on there. So if you're listening to this and watching this, comment, be like, I would love to see what t-shirts you're going to do, to let me know, to kind of gauge interest, because it's going to cost me some upfront cost, and I would like to know if there's even interest for it. And if there is, we could get it rolling. But I got a few clever shirts coming out, and it can help you let people know how you feel about things that are going on right now. So definitely let me know. I appreciate you all joining in and watching. I hope y'all have a good rest of the week, and I will see you next Monday at 8:30. I see your comment. I've re-downloaded TikTok. I am thinking about it. It is so hard with all this social media on here and streaming the podcast, and I like having video for podcasts and not just audio only, but I'm looking at doing TikTok again. I was on there doing jokes and things like that and getting pretty decent views, but God, they changed that app so much from what it used to be. I'll have to mess with it. But a buddy of mine got into a new streaming program that he was able to stream simultaneously, all at the same time, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. And I'm going to see if it'll do Instagram. And so if I can stream to multiple platforms. I'm looking at that, but I've got to upgrade my computer hardware, because I'm coming to you from a Chromebook. And that's why the picture quality is not, the camera is capable of much more quality, but my Chromebook doesn't have the horsepower. So I'm definitely looking at getting on TikTok and maybe making some shorts. There's a lot of Reels videos I do on the NURAC page. I have multiple people adminning it and sharing things. So definitely check out NURAC Facebook page and also NURAC.org, because there's always some stuff going on there. But yeah, definitely looking at TikTok. All right, y'all. Have a good rest of the week.